The following is a presentation of the ForceCenter podcast feed.
From the center of the galaxy, this is the ForceCenter podcast feed, and this episode is one of our deep dives, our Bacta tank of talk. It is going to be a turbulent time in the old Bacta tank because we are talking the magic of lightsaber fights. This is part 5. We are launching into the big, epic, concluding duels of Revenge of the Sith. I'm Joseph Scrimshaw.
I'm Cat Napzok, and is that Bacta or is it lava? He said, knowing it was a cheesy joke.
Imagine that is some balance in the Force, that there's Bacta tanks for healing and then lava tanks for not healing.
Oh, man. Some people enjoy a nice warm bath. I do not, so this is maybe that equivalent.
I like a warm shower, but lava is a step too far. I hope you enjoy the word lava because we're going to be saying it a lot. Before we get into all the lava, we want to let you know that today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/ForceCenter. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. This week, we are continuing to recommend Shadow of the Sith by Adam Christopher. It is a great and, dare I say, important Star Wars novel. Luke, Lando, Rey's parents, all sorts of excitement can be yours to listen to by downloading your free audiobook today by going to audibletrial.com/ForceCenter. One more time, that's audibletrial.com/ForceCenter for your free audiobook. And if you do get it and you listen to all of Shadow of the Sith and you think, I'm not done listening, you can listen to our, frankly, epic review discussion of the book that we did a couple weeks ago. Ken, any other Shadow of the Sith thoughts?
No other than I think you all should take a listen, a peek, a read. If you haven't had a chance to, it's one of those ones that's on that list you and I have of, I'd love to reread that Star Wars book when I'm done reading all the new Star Wars books, but it's on that list.
Yeah, I'm in the middle of reading the wonderful The Princess and the Scoundrel that we got advanced copies of, and in fact forgot that the young adult Obi-Wan teenage book was coming out, so we got to jump into that too. There's so many reading opportunities right now.
Yeah, look, we don't want to get into too much here. We're talking about lightsabers. Man, that Princess and the Scoundrel. Ooh, that's a good Star Wars book so far. I love it.
Really, really deeply amazing. I am clearing special, calm, quiet, quality time.
Yeah.
Calm, quiet, quality time. It's hard to say, but it's great to have, and I'm going to have that for this book.
Yes, indeed. Mm-hmm.
All right. Are you ready to get into lightsaber fights, Ken?
This is a big one, and I am ready.
Yeah. So if you're just catching up now with this series that we're doing, we've just really been examining all of the big lightsaber fights because they are such a key part of both the thrill, the adventure serial, the fun of Star Wars, but also the core themes. What is being said? What do the characters want? Why are they fighting? All these great ideas that are embedded in the duels. We've discussed all the duels from the original trilogy, the battles of Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, and the first half of Revenge of the Sith, but we had to break it up into 2 episodes. This episode, we're going to be talking the 2 climactic battles, Yoda versus Sidious and Obi-Wan versus Anakin/Vader. But before we get into those, we even have a bonus duel. We both, Ken and I, have the instinct not to count Obi-Wan versus Grievous as a lightsaber duel. Great fight. I have many thoughts and feelings on it, but I don't think of it as a lightsaber duel. Ken, why do you think it is that we don't think of it as a duel?
Look, at first, I want to acknowledge, I think this troubled some of our listeners. In the Discord, there's some talk of like, I don't know, that's a lightsaber fight, and we get it. We totally get it, but I just got to say, it's a fist fight. It's a barroom brawl and a car chase and a lightsaber duel. And I always make reference to like a pro wrestling card or a fight card. This is a gimmick slop match you put on an event to clear the palate before the big matches. It's fun. It's a crowd pleaser. It's got some great moments, but it is never going to be ranked higher than the big matches in the main event. And you need both to make a good card, to balance out a card. So I have a positive view of this fight. But yeah, I stop short of saying a lightsaber duel. It just doesn't work for me. And I have more thoughts on that there, but I want to make sure I'm not speaking for you here, sir.
No, I think we are very much on the same page. I think it starts as a lightsaber duel, and I think Grievous has the hubris to pretend it is a lightsaber duel, to pretend that he's a match for Kenobi. Obviously, he does go toe-to-toe with him in the Clone Wars, and he's deadly with lightsabers. I get all that. But in the context of Revenge of the Sith, I've been trained in your Jedi arts, and the big show, and the spinny. And then Obi-Wan, quickly ends the actual lightsaber fight portion by taking away two of his blades in rapid succession, and then kind of reminding him it's not just about being a Jedi is not just about lightsabers with the big force push. And then, yeah, I agree with you. It turns into a chase, a punch up, and a shootout.
Yes.
Real quick, I think, your sort of wrestling analogy where it's this big buildup of Grievous is like, I am the very best at this kind of wrestling, and then gets slapped down. Like, I know 3 other kinds of wrestling.
Yeah, it's a long-running feud, especially if you're watching the Clone Wars. And look, it's not just simply that Grievous isn't force sensitive. For me, why I don't count this as a duel, the themes are strong. He represents all this idea of he gave up most of all of himself for unspeakable power, position, and prestige. But it's all bark, 4 sabers, and no bite with him. He loses 2 hands and sabers in a blink. The clones interrupt him, and Grievous does what he does best, right? Runs. And at the end, even though Kenobi's once again taken a beating and doesn't break, that's kind of a Kenobi thing. It's less of a duel and more of a spanking emotionally. And in the end, actually a spanking sort of with a laser gun for Grievous.
Yeah, and I think that is maybe our quick version of the sort of what's at stake in the thematics. I really do like that it is Grievous is just all about brute force and power, and Obi-Wan is fighting defensively, disarming him. He's not going for the heart or the head initially, right? In the lightsaber duel, he's about, hey, let's even this up a little bit. What is Grievous not thinking about that I am? And I think Obi-Wan just has very much on his mind. He always runs. This isn't about me beating him in a lightsaber fight. This is about me making sure he doesn't run. And I think that's what the fight turns into. So with that in mind, I did want to ask you if you have any favorite moments of thrill or meaning or anything that makes that battle special to you.
Yeah, and that's what I go to the folks who might have been like, hey, you can't leave that out. And you're not wrong in a lot of ways. There's so many cool things in it. Revenge of the Sith is full of just awesome Star Wars pew and clash moments, if you will. And I think Kenobi's brash approach, you and I have talked about that before. Who doesn't love the hello there is such a, hey, what's up? And I love he contemplates for a second. Like I always interpret, he's like kind of looking down. How should I approach this like a Jedi? Bleep it. Let's go fight. So the hello there, your move. I don't think so. All these lines from it, they're all fun. They're all Kenobi stuff. They all have their own line with Kenobi in his life and in his career and in these moments. But even Kenobi pulling down the scenery, literally under the Magna droids, it's some great stuff. And it's almost like there's a vibe of it's almost Indiana Jones reaching for his pistol against the town swordsman.
Absolutely, it is. Ewan plays it that way. It's one of my favorite beats. That it starts with the great hello there and the great I think what he's assessing when he's rubbing the old chin is I need to buy time. I bet Grievous will want to take me himself. I bet he's got that ego, and I can play into that. But then you do get the big wind up of his great stance. And then it's the shoulder slump of like, I don't have to do this. It's totally Ewan McGregor channeling Harrison Ford. It's totally Obi-Wan channeling Han Solo from a certain point of view of like, I don't need to do this. And then bringing the machinery down is one of my favorite moments in all of Revenge of the Sith.
And because I love the Magna Guards, the Magna droids, I love the Electro Staffs, I love the look, the sound, everything about it. And I'm kind of like, yeah, it's gonna be. Oh no, punk! And then the head chop is comedy.
It is. So yeah, I love that moment. That's probably my number one. But I really do like the wheel bike. I just love how bizarre and interesting it is. But the real mechanical power and rage versus organic connection and big picture that's symbolized by the wheel bike versus Boga the Varactyl. And I have come to I've always liked Boga. Then I found out there are people who really disliked Boga, but that call. The Varactyl call of Boga is one of the, to me, coolest sounds, and it's just it's thrilling, and it is also meaningful because it is Obi-Wan being in the Jedi being flowing and organic, working with a creature versus I have a wheel I run away in. Is so spot on and really enjoyable. So I really love that part of it.
Yeah, and Kenobi trying to stick an electro staff into Grievous's wheel bike is really fun. It is like an Indiana Jones chase, and so this makes me realize that, hell, this is an Indiana Jones fight, not a lightsaber duel. And Indiana Jones being a character I love so much, I think that's why I do love this fight, but don't consider it on the surface, at least in a gut reaction way, that it's a lightsaber duel. But again, yes, lightsabers are involved, so I get it.
Absolutely. It starts out as a lightsaber duel. And yeah, like I think the animatic I haven't watched in a while. I think the animatic, that thing's like, 8 hours long initially when they conceived it. It was conceived in great love, I think, as a big chase. But I do really like the conclusion. I like a bunch of individual moments of, when Obi-Wan gets thrown by Grievous. And I love the conclusion. This is Grievous not learning from the past, not studying battles of. Everybody thinks that Obi-Wan is done when he's clinging to a ledge. But Obi-Wan wins with the high ground, and he often wins with the low ground. And I love that it is similar to the Maul fight of the villain doesn't see the options that Obi-Wan still sees, even when it looks like he's lost. And that leads the old blaster to the organ sack.
Well, when you say it like that.
And I just always love / enjoy the trauma of there's such question in the movie, but even more in like the novelization of who should go. Can Obi-Wan do this? This is the key. This is the battle that will end the Clone Wars. And Obi-Wan has this amazing victory that's immediately stolen from him. It's so sad.
Yeah, it is a victory, but it's a false victory in so many ways. But yeah, there's something about it. And I think that lingers with my initial viewings where I've talked often, like, I don't know, Grievous was kind of disappointing to me. I've changed my tune on that. I think what he represents is just tremendously valuable to the story, but he's just such wonderful design. And you're supposed to be left with that feeling of that's all. Cause there's greater evils behind it, but yeah, it's all good. It's all good. And I particularly like the kick and punch fest. I don't know why I love Kenobi kicking him. I just something about that where it's like, what did you think was going to happen, man?
He's just trying. He's just trying. Yeah. No. And I think this is one of those things that definitely changes with time, living through those years of anticipation between Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, and the Clone Wars micro series comes out, which has a lot of really big Jedi action and really sells Grievous. Is how can he be ever stopped? Even a team of 80 Jedi, how could they stop him? They really sell Grievous hard. So I think at the time that's the discussion that I was a part of with the friends who wanted to talk about Star Wars still.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Because it was getting a little thinner back then in the day. But yeah, I just looking at the movie for the movie, love this lightsaber battle chase punch up shootout. Yeah. Any final thoughts on this one before we move on to the ones we're covering?
No. Like I said, I do have a love for it, and who doesn't love a good barroom brawl in a motion picture?
Absolutely. Love this fight too. So that was our short overview of that fight in Revenge of the Sith. Now we're going to go on to those two big epic duels. First up, Yoda versus Sidious. Ken, this brutal battle begins at about 1 hour, 48 minutes into the film and ends at 1 hour, 54 minutes in. It is intercut only with the Obi-Wan and Vader duel. The actual fight between Yoda and Sidious lasts about 4 individual scenes, not counting Yoda's escape and Sidious's decision to head to Mustafar. So what are your current feelings on this fight, and have they changed over the years from back in the day?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think I never loved this one back in the day in some ways. And I don't know if you don't enjoy some of the overtop aspects of the prequel, specifically Revenge of the Sith, the fight presents maybe some challenges, especially 2005. So for me, from like 2005 to 2011, I wasn't crazy about this fight, but slowly but surely it became quotable. Its true meaning emerged, and at one point you just kind of pull back and go, it's crazy to think, especially again, we look at all viewpoints and entry points in the Star Wars, but if you're an original trilogy kid, it's crazy to think that you got to see Yoda versus the Emperor in a duel. And my Kenner love and heart just explodes. My mail away Emperor figure fought the Yoda figure I got at Kmart. Like, that's crazy. And I think that's where I look at it. and just kind of how I look at it now. And that's kind of a refrain that's going to come to, I even got some of those thoughts in the big duel we'll talk about in the second half of the show, where over time, some of the things that in 2005, I went like, that was clunky. It actually becomes, it's part of the things I love. It's the deliveries of McDermott or, little movements by Yoda that back in the theater, I crossed my arms and went, not my Star Wars. Now I'm like, that is Star Wars. And that's, I think, I hope a good thing to move forward and accept things. But also just to find joy in this entire battle.
Yeah, I think I always loved this one. I think that I always had a couple beats where it's like, oh, I'm not sure about this or whatever. But I think I really always loved this, even back in 2005, partially from just the sense of everything's out in the open, that just it permeates it. Just the masks are dropped, right? The way that scene begins, and how many meetings has Yoda had with this guy, and just comes in and just like, all right, Emperor, or should I call you Darth Sidious? And he just spends on this just Master Yoda. It's just like that sense of we've kind of been having the passive aggressive, peeing match, for years, and now it's just out in the open. So I think there was that I loved about it, regardless of any other details, and then just like you said, the answer to the decades-long playground in bar conversation, almost decades, a decade and a half long playground in bar conversations of like, did Yoda and Sidious, did Yoda and the Emperor ever fight? Did they have lightsabers? Do you think they ever had like a fight with their canes? Yes. Because they both got canes. Did they bash canes together? And I think one of the other things that I liked then and have come to appreciate more and more is just the emotion of it. I don't feel like there's in McDermott's performance and in Yoda's combined performance between Frank Oz and all the great animators and everyone. This fight is just there are a few different emotions in it, but for the most part, it's Palpatine's glee at violence and Yoda's just kind of horror and sadness at violence. Ultimately, that's like the heart of what's going on between them, and the heart of what this scene is about. Is Palpatine's like, this is great, destruction, anger, conflict, violence, two wrinkled evil thumbs up, and Yoda's just like, this is awful, this is eating my soul. All of that to me is going on within the fight. And we have these up and down moments where one is cocky and one is afraid and all that, but it's glee and horror.
Matt, this is what I love. You and I know what we're going to talk about, but we never know what we're going to say. We always we come to this podcast as we are, and we are often in line, even when we're at slight odds. It's a blurred edge, and we come together in the center, right? I literally wrote, I think my enjoyment of this scene now centers a lot around the straight glee from Palpatine.
He's just cackling, never-ending cackling.
And I think in 2005, when I'm in the theater wanting something else, I don't know why, I didn't, unlimited power challenged me. Now I love that. It's literally one of my favorite moments. We talked about it last week, but it's the glee he has throughout this fight. He is laughing. He's giggling. He is giggling, and he's destroying the Senate chamber that he spent so many years just toiling in, disguised as a caring politician. And again, we never want to side with him, but we love him. We love his presence. We love the big evil he is. And I was thinking, is this truly the only time we see this evil monster happy?
I mean, that gift that everybody does of just those little two hands of delight looking at Yoda's smoking body, right? And that's just at the beginning of the fight before he really gets into it. I mean, that's like that. People use that gift for like, oh, I'm going to have a meal I love, or, a TV show I released that I loved was released. And it's just that it's awful to be like, what is best in life? A little green friend's body smoking. I couldn't be happier. I'm looking at my 2-pack of this fight that I got back in 2014. And pretty straightforward Yoda, very cool. But then the Darth Sidious has the giant smile on his face, just that bleep-eaten grin.
Look, at one point he does try to run away, right? I think he's got some fear for Yoda. Let's be clear about that. We can talk about that beat.
Oh, we will.
But I even think it's not unlike, what comes to mind is the Steve Martin Bill Murray cameo in Little Shop of Horrors, where the dentist scene where he loves the pain. Even when Yoda like throws Palpatine across the office and into the chair, I think Palpatine's enjoying himself. He's like, yes, finally I get to fight. Yeah. He's just like, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's certainly into it by the time that he's almost falling off the Senate pod, and he's still like, this is great.
It's like he's at a state fair. He just fell off the ride, the roller coaster, and he's still like, this is great. I love it. Yeah. So there's that. I think there's a lot to take from Yoda failing and something that affects his future views, his outlooks, the lessons up to, of course, The Last Jedi. A lot of people love connecting that and to know what he he and the Jedi had slipped. It all comes together. We're going to talk about it in the themes, but now when I just watched the fight, that's part of what I take from it too, and why it has bigger meaning.
Absolutely. The kind of last picture for me on the current feelings and past feelings. I think part of the reason I like it as a lightsaber duel as well is it's not about like the individual beats. And sometimes I really like the clarity and being able to track the fights. Mm-hmm. I really like that for a lot of their lightsaber fight, we're pulled back and it isn't so much about the details. And in some ways that sells Yoda's stature and the shorter blade and the flipping and the kind of the different style of fighting. Yeah. It works really well because it's just kind of pulled back and operatic. It's not like in close tracking every little swing of the lightsaber.
Yeah, I agree with that. I like that take.
Awesome. Let's talk then about the characters and their souls. What is at stake in this fight? Why are they fighting? What is victory for each of them? Do you want to start with Sidious or Yoda?
I got Yoda first, perhaps because he comes out on the losing end, so to speak. I don't know why.
Let's start with Yoda. Why is Yoda fighting? What is it? What are his victory conditions?
Yeah, I mean, to pick up a little bit where I was talking about the overall thing, it's like, it's almost sad to watch from Yoda's point of view because, he kind of knows the Jedi had slipped and failed long before this fight even begins. And this idea that the fact that you're fighting is you're already kind of losing, but he's trying, he's saying the right words. He's just already lost. So it becomes sad. So in terms of what's at stake, I truly believe, I haven't spoken with Yoda, but I truly believe he's fighting for the galaxy of the Republic. I truly believe he's there for a last stand because he said at an end, your rule is, and not short enough it was, is a pretty strong statement. Like that's his thesis statement there. He's here to end it. And it isn't just a snippy little comeback for him. It's why he's there. And yes, there's this sense and theme that they all lost a long time ago, but Yoda has to take this final shot to me. It doesn't go the way. And when he says at the end, jump in the end of this fight, when he tells Bail, I have to go into hiding because I failed. I'm not quoting Yoda exactly, of course there. I think that's the overall failure. It isn't the failure, just the fight. It's that idea you and I've talked about is that just fighting, just being part of all this and compromising was the failure. But I really, truly believe he is taking a last stand because he feels that's what has to happen.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think that Yoda has this sort of clarity that we see earlier in the scene with Obi-Wan when they visit the Jedi Temple of like, this is one of the clear responsibilities of the Jedi. This is one of the reasons that we exist. The Sith, many things we can work with. We can see how it goes. We can listen to the Force. The Sith throw the Force out of balance. They spread pain and trauma because they like it, because it makes them more powerful. They will blanket the galaxy in darkness. The Jedi exist to hold back the darkness. They have to be stopped. This is just sort of like, this is one of his primary responsibilities, right? To stop the Sith. And this is like the worst coming true. The Sith is literally the leader of the galaxy, is about to take over. So I think there's this just sort of in the beginning, this great intent, this poise, this confidence. I'm here to save the galaxy, period. And, no try, do or do not. I'm going to do it. Yeah. But then I think underneath there is also this, it's almost happened. It's almost fallen. And I was complicit and I'm going to right my wrongs. Okay. Now that I knew everything that I was a part of, I can still pull it out. I can still pull a victory, out of this horrific situation. And I think that is a part of his motivation. What he's fighting for is to right his own wrongs in the Clone Wars, his blindness, his action, his just complicity with the war now that he knows it was all a trick.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, he's looking back and going, wrong there, listen to Caddy Mundi too long there, and and here we are. Yeah, and it's not hope in the sense of twin sunsets and the wide open future and flowers and fireworks. It is this grim determination to fight for the light and fight for what's left of it until you can't, until you have to look for another way. But yeah, I think that's definitely where it begins.
Yeah, and I think then I totally agree with you. The more I watch Revenge of the Sith, the more we watch different episodes of Clone Wars animated series, the failed I have is not just about the fight. It is about the entire Clone Wars, and it isn't just, I tried to kick his ass, but I couldn't.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
It's that he just wanted to keep fighting forever, which is how we got the galaxy into this situation. I failed helping to get this galaxy in this situation. I'm not in the place. I'm not the person to right this wrong right now. I got to get out of here. Yeah. And I think you can always have debates of, is that crystal clear in the film itself? Could it be clearer? And those debates are fine to have, but with the benefit of the Clone Wars animated series, that all comes out to me in Yoda's motivations.
Yeah, no, I agree. And look, we're not here to review individual films as much as connect it to the bigger story and the larger themes. And so I don't disagree with that. That might have been why some of the fight didn't connect with me early on, because I probably thought he's talking about losing that fight. And, it's just bigger. It's bigger than that. And this fight, I love that how you'd phrase it. This is a save the galaxy moment. That's huge. That's everything we've built for. And it all falls on Yoda in this moment here. But the feeling that they've already lost, you can't escape that.
Yeah. So let's talk about Sidious.
Good old Sheev.
What's at stake for Darth Sidious?
I don't know. Go with me here. This is one of those Ken has random thoughts things. I feel as though he feels as though he's already won, right? Like he kind of has, whether that's bluster and hubris and confidence. Of course, it's Palpatine. It's the leader of the Sith here at this time. So he's got his prizes, the Republic, and as he tells Yoda, I got Anakin too. I won everything. I won best dressed and best hair. I got it all. So I like that this fight is really personal, and it's this final obstacle to clear. He's a little surprised. Oh, Yoda, Order 66 didn't get you. Hello, how are you? Thank you for destroying my guards. I think it starts that way. And then it's just kind of like, as with always, this thing with Palpatine. He's got these detailed plans, but little wrinkles happen. And then he just rolls with it. Oh, you're alive? Great. Because I have hated you for so long. I think there's a lot of, personal victories at stake here for Palpatine outside the big ones that he already has.
Yeah, no, I really agree with you. I think the, straightforward initiative victory for Sheev is, hey, don't get killed by Yoda right here at the victory point. I already, won the race. I just need to walk over there and get my trophy. Don't get killed now for sure. Don't be stopped. But then I think it is personal too, right? He's been toying with Yoda for a long time. There, I think, is that sort of, so you survived. It's a little bit of surprise and a little bit of like, good.
Yes, right.
Because then I can see you realize what a fool you've been. I can end you. I think there's great joy, but there's also fear, right? Yes. I think Sidious has a list of Jedi he fears, and Yoda is way up there. I love that thread with Palpatine throughout the Star Wars storytelling, that he is incredibly powerful. He understands others' fears and how it's a tool to their failure. And I don't think he quite acknowledges how personally afraid of the Jedi, and specific Jedi, he is. Right. I love that moment earlier on in this film where he says, the Jedi are relentless. He's so haunted. And then I love that we know in the sequel trilogy that Palpatine is puppeteering Snoke, and everything is just about, like, if Luke Skywalker even looks at a kid, he'll turn him into Jedi and they'll come for me.
Yeah.
Luke Skywalker has to go. So I think he has a list of Jedi he truly fears, and Yoda is way up there. And I really like that beat is included. He thinks it's going to be an easy, quick kill. He gets real joyful, and then Yoda gets up and he gives him the push, and then he's like, "Oh no, I'm out of here."
Yeah. And No, that is the moment. Yeah, no, I think it almost like, you know what, I'm out of here. I already got my victories. But that fear runs deep. Yeah, because it's different than I think there's Kenobi's the zit on the chin that won't go away for him. The Jedi overall, Mace he probably didn't like, but gets the victory one way or another earlier than this. So I think Yoda's the big one. Yoda's the one who sat on so many Zoom calls with him, and he's just like, I hate that Yoda guy. And so I think that a lot of times what you hate is what you either fear or have jealousy for, and other unresolved issues. It's a lesson for all of us. Don't be a Palpatine with your hate. So I love that starting point there with him and Yoda.
And I think he is right to fear him, because I think Yoda does take it to him a lot in the battle. He has moments of he's cackling and then suddenly, whoop, nope, got to worry about this. So I think he's right to fear Yoda, but I think his sort of a twisted perspective of like, he is weak, he cares, he doesn't want to have constant violence. And so he breaks off this battle, even though we're evenly matched. Like, he sees a fool. I beat him on philosophical terms. I feel like that's what he's ending at. By the time he's been pushed off the pod, he's struggling to pull himself up and cackling away, enjoying this.
Yeah, and him getting the chance to kill Yoda on the way out. It's that when you go to a fast food restaurant and they accidentally throw a cheeseburger in the bag that you didn't order, you're like, well, look at this. I'm winning in many ways.
Yeah. I would love some more Sidious storytelling of him obsessing on Yoda every once in a while in those 19 years.
Yeah,
really checking for him.
Yeah, I love that.
How do you think the environment helps tell the story or the thrill factor?
I think it just really adds to the weight of it and really tells the bigger story. And there's some fun thrills to be had. But as mentioned earlier, I think there's just something really poetic about this fight, mostly taking place in the area in which Palpatine had to hide openly for so many years, and the same spot that he has declared his new empire. And yes, it even starts in his office, this true inner sanctum, where I think he probably was himself a little bit there at one of his offices, I know, where he and Masameda could probably daydream about what's to come. And so it starts there, but just that shot, everything about it, we'll get into some of the individual moments, but I think it just really adds to the weight of it, where I especially think early on when I'm watching this fight and he's cackling and he's giggling and I'm kind of like, what's going on here? And not liking all some of the overall vibe in 2005. I think as I slowly pulled back, much like you said, the fight does, and you just kind of see the weight of everything that's, the prequel era and the last three films and the Clone Wars series later on. It's just you feel it all in that chamber. And it's a great place for a fight. It's one of the most fun locations, I think, for a fight.
Absolutely. I think this entire fight, the location of it is thrilling. I also think it is one of the least subtle and best metaphors in all of Star Wars. It's just, it is just telling the story. Yeah, it is walking into this chamber where Yoda probably had conversations with him before. And then the sight of this just out in the open Jedi versus Sith vicious battle ascending into the Senate, into the place where this is a place in theory of discourse and empathy and peace and justice, and he has turned it into a place of red tape and guilt and fear and suspicion, and now he can tear the tape he helped build apart and just hurl it right. This is the smash cut from I love democracy to I'll throw a bleeping pod at you all day. I don't bleep and care. It is just so powerful and a cool visual, right? To go from these floating Senate pods are kind of a cool design, thinking back to 99 when people, who didn't like it at the time poked fun at, like, Star Wars is supposed to be thrilling and we're just watching a political debate. Right. How do you like this? We're throwing pods now.
Yeah, we're throwing those damn pods around. Yeah. No, it works. And I said, it's not hidden. It's right there. This is what this is. This is the theme. This is the story. And can you connect to it or not is the big question.
Yeah. If this is a story about institutions being corrupted from the inside and falling apart, here is the person who wants to corrupt it. And one of the people who swore to defend it And not only they're tearing it apart, but, the image of Yoda, trying to get up there, trying to ascend and, falling again and again and just needing to stay down is powerful. So it's meaningful and it's thrilling. I mean, it's just we'll talk about it, but it's a great action moment to be chucking those pods around.
Yeah. Good old pod chucking.
Little pod chucking. And I also do like that it starts in the office. Like I can see it starting in the Senate chamber, but the ascension is so great. And it's also just really fun to just like, what were Palpatine and Masamita going over? Is this when they were looking at, specs for Imperial outfits?
Yes. I really think so. I really think there's a lot of that there. And Masamita being one who kind of is always on the inside and how much does he know and all those kind of things I love. And, there's something about it that's great. That's because again, Palpatine thinks he's won. So, all right, what do you think about these shades of gray? Like, yes, that's what he'd be doing.
Is he turning to Masamita like, have I ever told you about Exegol? Yoda breaks up the Imperial planning meeting. Yeah. Pretty great. Yeah. What realities of filmmaking do you think about when you watch this fight? About how and when it was made and how it fits into the big picture, all that stuff.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. The reality of the digital Yoda is a good reality in this fight. Mm-hmm. I think this fight is underrated in terms of how it looks. I think obviously and understandably a lot of focus on the Attack of the Clones thing, which was a big leap forward in tech and Yoda. But there's so many effects in it, and the action kind of drives the whole sequence for me. But Yoda, I think, just looks great here. Are you always going to want to make little tweaks here along the way with tech? Yeah, of course. But I think this fight just is smooth, and in a film series, in a film that is sometimes maligned for blue screen and CGI, and that this is not looking real. And some of those critiques do hit for me and are correct. This one, I've never felt that, even when I didn't necessarily love this fight. I think it always kind of looked good. And it's just, I think of the reality of Lucas saying, make it all digital as much as we can. I think it really was one of the moments where it sings.
Yeah, I think it really sings. We talked a little bit about the tension in the Palpatine versus Mace fight earlier in the film between just letting it be close-ups with McDermott and Samuel L. Jackson's great action and trying to add the CG elements and how well do they mix. This one, I feel like, really nails it, right? The lightsaber fight to me looks great because it's mostly from afar, and it's really letting you feel the environment and the space and the meaning of it. And then you get those just great close-ups of McDermott's twisted, terrifying face. And when I watch it, I really do think about like just how great the Yoda work is. There's a lot of complex emotions, from determination to fear to shock to disgust to just like everything. And I've loved all of the stuff that I believe Rob Coleman has posted about like clinging himself to ledges to get the reference for Yoda's face. And that's always been so effective to me. The sound effects of Yoda's fingernails are like, they always go straight to my heart of, it's not just about the fight. It's clinging to everything he's known, and he can't do it anymore. It's so well done, from the CGI to the sound effects, everything. The only thing in this fight that is a bump for me, and always has been, is a thing that I don't think has any CGI in it, and it's a Palpatine's chair flip.
I watched that 3 times this morning. What is it? This is great, because I'm kind of with you, but also it's one of my favorite moments because it's so awkward.
It is so awkward. It is like I don't need a special edition, but if there was one, I'd be like, maybe that might be a moment to look at.
Yeah.
It's the speed, right? Like everything is working to me with the CGI that they're doing, the way they're shooting it, the combination of the close-ups, and obviously CGI stuff. Like you got the great shot of the zoom in on Yoda's face as the lightning is about to hit him. And then we kind of have the reverse, right? When Yoda raises his hand up, there's the rush of force energy whooshing that we hear. Palpatine's face looks so alarmed, and he flies backwards, and then like kind of slowly manages to barely kind of roll over a chair. And it feels to me like a shot that has absolutely been inserted like at the wrong. To me, that's just a total like, ooh, almost, but take it again. It's the tempo. It needs the tempo. How powerful Yoda's push was does not match the way he slowly kind of tumbles over the chair. He looks more like somebody who got drunk at a toga party than somebody who got force pushed by a Jedi Master.
I agree. I think, dare I say, that George should have said his own famous words, faster and more intense, and done it again. I think it is. And there's one little beat. Again, this is, done with love. After that, and then Palpatine like almost pops up like it's a clear, almost bad straight to VHS edit for me. Like, this is I don't want to go too deep into insulting it, but like, you know what I mean? Like, he pops up like, yeah, and I'm just like, well, that wasn't. I know it wasn't you, but that wasn't you.
It was really not him. No, and at this point, like many things that I'm sometimes unsure about, like it is not going to hang me up and stop me from enjoying the rest of the scene, the rest of the film, the ideas behind it. And it even gets to that point where like, I criticize it, but I also enjoy it.
Well, part of the reason I enjoy it is there's a little bit of the sound. You're right. There's this big epic feel, the music swelling, the lightning, the force, and suddenly it is just the sound of a stunt performer hitting a chair, and it's very real.
I think it's also just like the choreography. There's something just sort of like so real and slapstick, and you know, like the bad version of Dick Van Dyke.
Yeah,
like because Dick Van Dyke is a master. If they had got Dick Van Dyke in 2005, even at his age, he could have sold the hell out of that. I think it's just something about like the beginning. The Yoda pushes him, and it feels like it should be epic. Like Palpatine's back should crash into the wall, and the wall should crack a little bit, and he slides down a little bit and stands up kind of crooked, and some bones cracking, and just like that feels like what it should be. And instead it feels like, oh, oops, I didn't know this chair was here when I backed up. Like it's the combination of this sort of like intent.
Yeah, look, we could say Palpatine's being pushed into the very bureaucracy that he created for the galaxy.
Yes.
You could do all that. We could have themes. But I think at the end of the day, here's why I think it might, run up against you here. You see Palpatine's pants, and that's just too real.
I always imagine as he's going over that chair, Palpatine going, oh, whoops-a-daisy.
Like,
it's the whoops-a-daisy energy.
He's got some Dockers from Kohl's. Good job, Palpatine.
This is why he and Masamita need to be talking about new outfits, right?
Yeah, yes. I'm going to go with a straight robe. I'm going to go with a robe. Very airy. No pants.
I didn't know this was going to happen to my face. So, yeah. Anyway, it is fun every once in a while to talk about the moments that maybe don't sing for us. And that one shot is the one thing that doesn't sing. Honestly, everything else, all the CGI stuff, every other beat in this works great for me.
I'm with you on that, and I'm one who sometimes gets caught up on those little things. I'm still slightly pissed that Mace clearly steps on a floor and not dirt on Geonosis and Attack the Clones, right? I still think about that. I go to bed thinking about that. But no, this fight, I think, deserves a lot of credit. It really looks great.
Speaking of moments we like, let's talk about some of our favorite moments of thrill or emotion, just favorite beats in the fight. Where do you go?
Player Yoda has entered the game.
Oh, my Lord.
He tosses those Royal Guards. The applause break in the theater for me in 05 was amazing. It was an absolute applause break. Not standing O, but applause break.
Oh, yeah.
And the film knows it because there's that pause, right? There's a little bit of that like, yep, I just did that. Just did that. Took your Kenner Royal Guard figures and I threw them against the wall.
It for me, it's just how casual it is. It just is like, you are not part of this conversation. Log off the Zoom call. You're not part of this. It's so great how casual it is.
Yeah, and
how much they're just totally out of it.
Yeah. Oh, done, right? And the power in it, and talking about, here's Yoda, this nice old wise Jedi trying to do the good thing, and he's there for business. Going to what we were talking about the themes lead into it. This is why he's here to fight for the galaxy. And here's what I got. Here's what my skill chart is showing you right now.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that's a big one for me. I think my second one on my list, Ken, is the amazing Sidious dialogue. Maybe some people don't like it, but I've been looking forward to this for a long time. My little green friend. It's so slow and low and beautifully evil and over the top all at the same time. It is just relishing it, right?
Yes. I even go to what we were talking about earlier of Master Yoda. You survived. And it's again, showing he's rolling with the punches, but he gets to get what he wants, and he's having a Sheev's very good day. And I love it. And we go again to the unlimited power of it all is that he is this big gothic villain who is just free. He's free. He's dancing in the hills and in a field of grass and a field of gold. This is the feeling in his heart, and it shines through. And I think the dialogue is peak Palpatine. Not quite Return of the Jedi. No one get out of your seats, but it's peak Palpatine.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that is a part of what this character is. That's what I love about Palpatine, that he is this very real world evil, these political machinations, seeing people's fear and manipulating it and turning it against them, and also having this absolutely cynical and nihilistic, everybody's just out for themselves, and anybody who doesn't admit it is just a liar, combined with just evil cackling space wizard out of British pantomime, and I really like both sides of him.
Yeah, I'll take it all. Yeah.
So what are some other favorite moments of Palpatine or poor Yoda?
Well, I was going to say Masamita going, I have paperwork to do. I've got to file all the requisitions for uniforms. I'm out of here. And he just doesn't come back until it's over. When he's like, there's no body. He's not dead. Keep looking. Like, you're a real tough guy. You bolted. You let your boss have his time, I guess.
Yeah, what I absolutely love about that is the way it's cut. You could probably just cut back to the office and Masamita isn't there, right? But we cut back and Masamita is like, okay, not my thing, not my problem. I'll be down here. I'll get a coffee. Watching him leave is really funny.
Yeah, really funny there. I also enjoy the Evil Dead point of lightning view shot. I think that's really effective, and it's something that's slightly different from other parts of Star Wars in a way, and that's, therefore just kind of, I've always loved that one there.
Yeah, that one's really great. I do like the moment where Yoda leaps and stops Sidious from leaving when Sidious realizes it's not going to be as easy to take him out as he thought. I love whenever Yoda, in his wonderful, weird cadence sentence structure, just says a tough guy line.
Yes.
So, if so powerful you are, why leave? And then I really like the choice that the animators did of, like, we did the super great call the lightsaber to his hand in Attack the Clones. So what can we do different? And just having him grab it is great. Having his robes underneath be his little brown action jumpsuit.
Right. Yeah.
But what really gets me, which I've come to focus on and appreciate even more, is the little flip in his hand, right?
Yes.
That he's got it hanging upside down and he grabs it and just does a little flip in his hand.
Yoda's got style. He's got style.
He surely does, and that is a moment of style. What are some more moments for you?
I think it leads to some of the bigger stuff we were talking about. And again, I love your note of a lot of this is pulled back, but the dueling while the Chancellor, little Chancellor Deus rises. It's a great use of the setting, great just thematic use of the setting. But it just, I don't know, I've always loved it, and how it as. Because we obviously we're going to talk about Anakin and Kenobi. They're fighting that fight's picking up steam, and this is kind of the final chapter here of the movie, and just the fact that it's in the office and it's this little fight, and people are being tossed over chairs and lightning, and all of a sudden they're going at it there with the blades, and it just opens up and they start going into the Senate chamber. I just really think it's a wonderful epic moment. It's really befitting Star Wars. It's just giant. It's something that I've always loved. Again. And when you're talking about, hey, back in 2005, I didn't like a lot of the stuff. There's always those little things that are in your heart. You're like, ooh, but that moment was cool. And that's why I always say lean into those moments and you'll find a pathway to greater joys within these stories and in these sequences and in these fights. And I've always loved that one.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I was really appreciating this morning that specific shot. They played really far back so you can see, the empty Senate and the red and the green, cracking together. It's really, really powerful for all the reasons we talked about. So that is one of my favorite shots and probably my favorite part of the actual lightsaber fight part of it. And then we get to the throwing of the pods, which I want to be sure to talk about just as an action scene because it is thrilling. It's meaningful and everything, but there's just some like great action beats, some great takes. I love that Palpatine's he's not concentrating, right? He's not like kind of grabbing one and throwing it. He's got that like that almost windmill energy with his arms, right? He's got that, like, I'm just going to do this with my arms, and if you walk into it, that's your problem kind of energy.
Lisa and Bart Simpson fighting. Yeah, got it.
Yeah, it's just this one. I don't even care. I don't. Who was that? The ET's pod? Yeah, was that the Wookiees pod? I don't care. Just, there it is. It's abandon. It's glee. Like we talked about. And then I've always liked the Yoda stopping the one.
Yes.
And getting the spin going. Like, I don't know why that makes it a more devastating projectile, but it does.
Well, there's a lot to this fight that reminds me of a great video game sequence. And I never recalled playing the Revenge of the Sith video game. I remember seeing it. I know that's pretty popular for folks there at the time there. So I don't know how accurate it is to the movie, the video game sequence. But I love that sequence. I love the spinning. I love the time. And I love that Palpatine kind of is just... He's watching it and he's still kind of surprised by it. He has that weird kind of awkward leap, but there's something I love about it. He's just like, what do you do? Oh, crap. So I just, I love that moment too. It's something, the spin is, you can just feel him pressing the X button.
You got to get it going fast enough and then whoosh. Yeah. It's pretty great. Final thing for me is that final, the final beat between them. I love that Yoda has been holding on to his lightsaber, jumps up in that final burst of Sith lightning, takes it out, right?
Yeah.
And for me, it is this like, oh, what if they both had lightsabers, or did they fight with their canes since I was a kid? And kind of getting back to the end of this fight of it is just the two of them without blades. Yoda losing his blade is, I think, symbolic. And I think this last moment is just really, really well done to show them being truly evenly matched, right? The way they both explode out. And Palpatine's response is to be alarmed, but then cackle like, okay, great. I'm still alive and the fight can keep going. Poor Yoda and his, his centuries old body pounding on those Senate pods. He's obviously in pain, but it's also just this contrast to, this is great. We're evenly matched and this fight could go on for a super long time. And Sidious is like, great. And Yoda just sees like the pain and the horror. And I feel like that is sold. That storytelling is, to me, in the film sold in the way that it's totally evenly matched and then it just explodes, and one is happy to re-engage and Yoda's just like, no, this is not what it's about.
Absolutely.
Any other beats that you wanted to discuss?
It's the final one, and it flows nicely into what we're going to keep talking about here. But the nails, Yoda holding on to the fight, and you kind of mentioned it, holding on to the fight, holding on to the Republic, the past, the Jedi Order, his way of life, and it's over. It's always been over, and he falls and kind of just knows the moment he hits the ground. It's interesting that you bring up the details of Rob Coleman trying to get the face right, but even just the digital work they did with Yoda, like it reads on his face the moment he hits the ground. Kind of what you're saying. This fight could go on. It just shouldn't at this point. We have to, there has to be another way, and we failed. It all kind of reads, and it comes down to those nails, and we all feel it. We all feel that scrape and that strain, and it's not quite nails on a chalkboard, but it's that same type of like, oh, it's just, it's a really visceral moment. I love it.
Yeah. The nails are great. And I got so excited. We did bleed a little bit into the final thing I wanted to talk about is I wanted to be sure to ask you, because I know it's come up back in the day when I was doing the Star Wars counseling episodes. Certainly heard fans wonder about it, of like, it seems like Yoda was holding his own and he has to stop this Sith Lord to save the galaxy. Why didn't he get up even with the pain and keep fighting? And I want to be sure to ask you how you feel about that. Do you feel what's in the film works, makes sense, all those things?
It does work for me. It's so real. It's so sad. I talked about that earlier, just kind of knowing the big picture when you're watching the fight. You get kind of this weird joy from Palpatine's glee, but it's just sad for Yoda that he is taking this last stand because he has to, and it does connect to some of those themes. They already lost. They lost years ago, and so this even isn't just even as simple as there are alternatives to fighting. This is, it's even worse than we imagined, and we can't win now. We just can no longer fight. It just can't happen. And I think that's part of the reason he's not scampering away like I couldn't do it. I think he could absolutely find a way to get back in there. But like you said, they're evenly matched, but it's the big picture. It's the overall feeling of what's going on. Mind you, Order 66 has happened. They've got a lot of death and destruction going on. So it's not just running away. It is this idea that this is what has to happen right now. And this is a long time coming, unfortunately. And Yoda feels the weight of it.
Yeah. I think so too. I think, the battle being evenly matched in general, and in particular in that last, shot of, it's not just evenly matched. We're watching, a sporting match and like, oh, wow, they have the same points. It's like, what is Yoda doing when Sidious is blasting that lightning? He's absorbing all of that rage and anger and glee for violence and trying to convert it into light, right?
Yeah.
Because I mean, that's kind of the way I don't know the technicality of it. I don't know what Yoda has mastered over the years, but like in Attack the Clones, he deflects some Sith lightning, but then he grabs a bunch of it and he kind of turns it into a white ball of energy and just absorbs it, right? And that's a little bit what's happening here, of like he's absorbing it, like to me that feels like I am answering the darkness with light. I'm turning all of this hate into, I'm negating all this hate, right? So the fact to me that he's just being pummeled, not with just an attack, but with just violence that takes something from his soul to do what he's doing, right? That's not just a force power, that's his soul.
Yeah.
And that image to me is so symbolic of the trap of the Clone Wars of, I can find the logic that this is defense, but the reality is it's just endless violence. So to me, that is really, really powerful and helps sell the whole big picture idea. I think there's also, I also love the cloak shot, right? When he just sees the cloak and just like, this is an opportunity. This is an opportunity to step away, And I'm not saying any of this is in the film, but this is my kind of Yoda headcanon. Like, I'm sure he's hurting, right? But he's also thinking, like, what happens if I get back up there? Eventually, a bunch of clones are going to come, and I'm going to start slaughtering them like I slaughtered all those clones to get in the Jedi Temple. Not my first choice. Doesn't feel good. Didn't want to do that. They're pawns, and I had to slaughter them to get into the Jedi Temple. But what am I going to do? Just this is what I want to do. Stay here and just keep killing. I feel like, to me, that is a part of what's going on in his head. And then just seeing that cloak and just realizing like, this is my opportunity to step away and then figure it out.
Yeah. Figure it out. And leads us to the bigger stuff, the exile and all that kind of stuff. But it makes me think of, wars not make one great, all those kind of bigger philosophies that are always have been in Yoda, but he gets it, even going to the end of Attack the Clones. But it's all of it in front of him, right? He's seeing it all in those moments. And especially with the Jedi cloak peacefully flying down in the middle of all this chaos and destruction.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's a really great, he's been stripped of everything. He's lost his lightsaber. He's lost his robes. He's lost sort of all of his symbolism because everything has fallen. Everything's been stripped from him. I think that's really powerful. And I do think the great Yoda arc that we talk about a lot at the end of season 6 of Clone Wars is really powerful. Like Palpatine knows the way to break Yoda is to keep him fighting, is to turn Yoda's commitment to defending the galaxy from the Sith into hatred of the Sith so that he keeps fighting. And that when that doesn't work in this vision that Palpatine is causing, Palpatine himself says, we failed to break Master Yoda.
Right.
And I think that ties really well into this scene where Yoda is not falling into the trap again.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great connection to that.
Awesome. So we are going to wrap up our discussion of this duel by giving it a lightsaber rating. So Ken, out of 10 lightsabers fully ignited, how many lightsabers do you personally give this fight?
I go 7.5. I'm going to stick with this 7.5, which again just seems bad. We're in an era where you got to go 8 or 9, and otherwise it's not a classic, and you have to throw it out. 7.5 because it's a little short. It's not a long fight. It's full of some crazy moves, but not a ton. But it packs such a punch and such an emotional weight, and it's played opposite against perhaps one of the biggest fights in the saga. And so it can get overlooked a little bit, but it doesn't need to be better or bigger than that fight. It needs to do what it needs to do, and I think it does. So it's a 7.5.
Yeah, no, I think that is a really, really good rating. You are continuing to make smart use of decimal points. I gave this one a straight up 7 out of 10 because with the exception of the enjoyable absurdity of the chair flip, I love every shot of this. I love all the ideas. I love the setting in the pod throwing, but when I really look at it, I like the lightsaber fight.
Yeah.
I like the pulling out of the blades, but the lightsaber fight stuff is not the stuff that I love about this scene. So if I'm rating lightsaber duels with lightsabers, I got to go a little lower. So I go 7 out of 10.
Yeah, no, that's great. And look, I just, got a lot of my digital media start in a movie review capacity where your 0.5s and your 0.75s make a difference. And I just spent too many years in that world. I'm glad I'm out of it, but I use them still.
No, I totally understand. And yeah, we don't normally do the ratings. It just kind of felt like a good way to kind of put them in context. Yeah. And absolutely subjective.
And it's fun, not fact.
Yeah, no such thing as a definitive ranking of lightsaber fights as far as I'm concerned, because everyone has a different definitive, and that is just fine. In fact, that's great. And with that, we are going to take a quick break, and we're going to get back into a very epic duel. Obi-Wan versus Anakin, or is it Vader, or is it both? We'll be back. And we are back with part 5 of Magic of Lightsaber Fights, and we are getting to a big one. I think one that is intended by the creative team to be perhaps the biggest ever, the showdown, the epic clash between Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin Skywalker / Darth Vader. This fight begins at 1 hour, 47 minutes and ends at 2 hours and 1 minute. It is only intercut with Yoda Sidious battle and Yoda's escape, and it's divided up into 7 different scene chunks. Ken, what are your current feelings on this fight? Have they changed over the years? It sounds like they have.
Yeah, no, I think this is sometimes all I'll put on. If I got time for 30 minutes of Star Wars, it's like, ooh, to Mustafar we go. I'll pop it on, not just the fight, but kind of last 30, 40 minutes of the film. I love that. I love this whole thing, and this anchors all that. It does, and I think always did, minus some little details rubbing up against me back in the day. But it always has lived up to the expectations that I had since I read that Return of the Jedi novel in '83. That's where little Kenny first learned about some lava planet and some big fight and molten lava and all that stuff, and the excitement I saw in the trailers to get to it here. I think it worked. And again, there's little beats and lines that gave me problems then, don't really bother me now. And yes, that's a common refrain for us when discussing the prequels. But I don't want that to hide anything that isn't perfect, including maybe the handling of Padme's death and all that kind of stuff in the end. Mm-hmm. There's always bigger discussions to have, but it's also just the truth. It's just like you see it, and even a line, your new empire, which I might have joked coming out of the theater or something in 05. It's Star Wars. It's part of the fabric. And I can see why someone who sat down to watch these movies in 99, 02, and 05 and had no real frame of reference to the old ones just loved this stuff and took it the same way we did in our generation. I get it. It's big Star Wars. This entire sequence is wonderful, large, epic Star Wars.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think I loved this fight when it first came out, but I had some bumping up against my expectations. Mm-hmm. We talk a lot about trying to engage with the story you're presented with, being careful of not just disliking something because it isn't exactly what you imagined. I had such anticipation for this fight in particular. I think I was saying on an earlier episode about how I kept telling people, like, you got to check out Revenge of the Sith, even if you didn't like the first two, because Ewan McGregor is the best person who's ever fought with a lightsaber, and he's going to fight Anakin for like 15 minutes. I watched, all the behind the scenes clips. I think there was I think I'd already seen a part of the cut of the fight that ended up being cut where Anakin loses his lightsaber. So I was, frustrated. Like I didn't see the thing that I thought I was going to be in there. Even down to the day I saw Revenge of the Sith, I was doing children's theater. I was doing a production of Charlotte's Web. I was playing Templeton the Rat, and I had 3 shows. I got up at probably 5 a.m. that day and had 3 shows, the day that was going to be the midnight release. And there's a part of that show where I had to hide in this little tiny crawl space under the stage waiting to pop up out of a trap door to be Templeton the Rat. And I was under a stage getting ready to be a rat, just thinking about this lightsaber fight. 15 full minutes. It's going to be so good. I had so much anticipation, and it affected the way I saw it,
Yeah. Hey, look, and it's fun to have those expectations. We don't deny that at all. Yeah. And again, from 83 to seeing a trailer going, oh my God, we're finally, I told you all, I didn't dream it. There's a lava planet. That's where they fight. Yeah. That's a lot of expectations.
Yeah. And I think the thing that I was surprised to be, upset about is it was so fast.
Yeah.
And I think I've had conversations with other people too. It's like, both lightsabers being blue, the speed causing them to have like a lot of blur and a lot of glow, that I think the first time I saw it, I was expecting it to be like 15 minutes of the Obi-Wan versus Maul phrase that I like so much, where it's so clear what's happening. And as I've watched it over the years, it has become much clearer, and I can enjoy individual moments that we'll talk about. But I was just sort of gobsmacked in the theater that it was so fast that I didn't feel like I could track it in the detail. And that's one of the things that, ultimately it was their intent. It's what's so impressive about it. It's so fast, and it's really them doing it,
Right.
But
right.
This is one of those times where a creator came up with something. They delivered exactly what they intended to create. They delivered exactly what they told me they were going to do. And then I made up something different in my mind, and I bumped up against it.
And it happens to us. It certainly does.
Yeah. Yeah. So I really appreciate it even more now for what it is, that it's epic, it's fast, it's fury, it's the culmination of the Clone Wars. This is where all that violence led, just, a hellscape and trauma. And final thing I'll say, big picture, I always liked the high ground. I liked it back in the day. I like it today as we sit here. Yeah. Were you challenged by the high ground back in the day?
I was challenged after I saw the film a few times, because people told me to be challenged. You know what I mean? It became a joke. It became something. It wasn't that silly. So I just went, yeah, it was totally silly. And I never really stopped to really, analyze what was there and what I liked about it. Because I didn't walk out going, of all the things in that movie, I didn't walk out going, and then he said the high ground. But then I heard people did, and I felt a peer pressure.
I understand. It is easy to do. It always made sense to me that I didn't want Obi-Wan to just be like, I got an opening and I hack one limb and then another and then another. Like, right. I wanted it to be clear and tactical and character based. And that's what that allowed, and I always liked it because it allowed it to be about the perspectives of the characters and not just vicious violence from Obi-Wan. I mean, it's vicious violence, but it's not like, it's not the danger of doing like the Monty Python. It's just a flesh wound joke by slowly taking one limb after another.
Yeah. No, and this is a different conversation, but it goes to even the I hate sand moment, which becomes such a joke, and it's fun, and, clips and drops and everything that you can use from that. I get it. But there's so much to that sequence, and so much to Padme and Anakin and how they view the world, right? There's so much in that wrapped up in, I don't know, maybe an awkward line delivery from a certain point of view. I don't even know if that's accurate anymore, especially for this film. But so it's a weird relationship we have with it, where the zeitgeist takes over and moves far away from what's intended and what is actually there. It becomes something else.
Yeah, I'm just going to put a big asterisk here about our sand conversation, because I almost launched into some thoughts and feelings, but we have plenty to talk about. Maybe we should do a scene by scene of that scene, because I think it is it is different things in the sand scene that make people obsess on the sand thing. And the sand thing is fun. I like that fans who legitimately like the prequels have embraced it as a fun thing. All right, I am going to cut myself off from talking about sand, and we are going to move on to the characters. What's at stake? Why are they fighting? What is victory for Obi-Wan and Anakin /Vader?
Okay, this is the big one.
Yeah. So, would you like to start with Anakin /Vader, or would you like to start with Obi-Wan?
Dealer's choice. Where you want to go?
Let's go with Anakin Vader, and you know what? I'm also going to throw this in. When you think about this fight, when you talk about this fight, what do you think of this character? Is he Anakin? Is he Vader? What is that distinction to you at this point in time?
That's a great question, because he technically already has the name, right? He's got the business cards. That's what we know.
It's on the action figures of this fight. That's an action figure of Darth Vader.
Yeah, so technically right, but I still kind of see it as Vader struggling to take hold over Anakin. Maybe it's still more Anakin, because I'll tell you why. The big and this is also the first viewing of this fight since the Kenobi series for me. And there's a new added wrinkle and weight to it, right? There's a new emotional gut punch to it. I don't believe Anakin's words. Like, I know he's saying them, and I know he wants to believe them, but more now than ever, I just feel he's so just lying to himself about everything as he tries to wrestle with it. So that's why I still see a lot of Anakin in this fight.
Yeah, I think he's proclaimed to Sidious that he's Vader. He's trying to tell Padme he's still Anakin, but he's not Anakin. But Anakin's not right, you know. I think he's trying to prove to Obi-Wan that he's Vader and that he doesn't care about anything. But, you know, I think it's so great to have that shot earlier on where, you know, he is embracing the dark side. He did awful things at the Jedi Temple. He is absolutely letting go of fury of finally taking out these separatists who've, you know, harmed him and harmed Padme and harmed his clone friends. And then he still has that moment where the tear comes, right? Where he knows it's wrong. He knows it's wrong. Yeah. You know? And I think that's all to say that I really, really agree with you. I think that he is trying so hard to be Vader. That's what he wants out of this fight, is to prove.
Yeah. It's bluster. Yeah, and that tear, it's still all empty. I'm empty inside. Oops, that didn't work. And that's the way this kind of story goes, right? And so you should kind of feel that there.
Yeah. And I think he is just totally, obviously, choking Padme is awful. It's one of the most awful things in Star Wars that we see a character do, right? To turn something to turn against somebody you profess to be doing this all for because you love. It's so awful. And I think that the moment that he's capable of that, he is really in the throes of the dark side, right? Yeah. He is in what Yoda and Obi-Wan and others have described as, like, you take a step down that path and pretty soon it's dominating your destiny. And I think he is just really, really in the clutches. And I think what's at stake in this fight is obviously he wants to win. He wants to strike Obi-Wan down. He doesn't want to be struck down by Obi-Wan. There's the actual, like, straightforward fighting. But the word prove just comes to my mind again and again, right? He wants to prove that he is the most powerful. He wants to prove that his choice to join the dark side was the right one. He wants to prove anyone who has ever doubted him or held him back like Obi-Wan is wrong. Prove he is the most powerful. Prove that his lies are true, right? Like when he says later in the fight, I should have known the Jedi are taking over. Like, how does he square that with going to Mace and saying, hey, Palpatine is a Sith Lord. He needs to be arrested, right? He didn't see anything that proved that the Jedi were taking over. He just leaned into that lie because it's what gives him, cover for all the horrible choices he's making. So I really think that you're right to point out the lies. He's trying to prove that he can sort of just force the worldview that makes him justify his actions, that he can violently map it onto everything and make it be true. It is a giant tantrum.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of energy that connects to Kylo and his story, without a doubt, and even go to the Force Awakens traitor line, all that stuff. But even I think of a lot of Last Jedi energy of destroy the past, kill if you have to. Of just like, I have this horrible pain, and the only way I can get through it is to control it, and it just kind of connects thematically and energy wise.
Yeah, absolutely. So Any other Anakin Vader thoughts? Do you have a preference whether we call him Anakin or Vader?
I call him Anakin, and yeah, no, look, I think I have a lot here. I mean, yes, it is about his anger, his lust for power, but you just this sake you were touching about just what's at stake is his sense of control, right? His idea of I can fix anything that challenges me, and that's how he'll feel safe and we'll feel safe. I thought of this fight watching alone there. I've been thinking a lot about young Anakin lately. I thought a lot about little Annie, if you will. And a character so confident, so helpful, so joyful. And then over the course of these films, piece by piece, everything is peeled away and the fear and attachment build just as he gets more and more powerful, the sliding scale there almost, more power, more skills, and more fear, more attachment, all kind of leads to this. And he can't go back. He feels he can't just say, I'm sorry. He's hurt Padme. The reason he grabbed all of his power, he is now the one who's hurt her. He's a scared little boy fighting to go back to a place where you can't get hurt. That's to me what I say. I just want to go to a safe spot that I can control. And for him, it's controlling it all. And that line he says to Padme, because I love the preamble of this fight. If only he and Padme could rule the galaxy, then nothing bad could happen to them. To me, that is a 9-year-old boy who had his life upended and with some purpose in which what he wanted, and that was his dream. And then all these things happen, and there's a lot of people who failed him, and then he made a lot of choices from that. It's all there, and it's all at stake. I think it's also interesting to note that Palpatine senses he's in danger long before the fight is over, right?
Mm-hmm.
He isn't like, he just got his ass kicked, he's on the shores. And I think over the years I've messed that sequence up in my head. Where like Palpatine's like, ooh, let's get a team. Vader's on the shores burning. No, it's way before that. The conflict, fear, everything. Palpatine's picking up on his precious toys in trouble.
Yeah, no, I love that. You said a lot of great things here. I love the idea of control. I love that he says to Padme, make things the way we want them to be, right? That is such a, it's so understandable for somebody who's gone through a lot of trauma. Like, we won't have to hide our marriage. We can have our kids. I can protect and save anybody I want to. Any injustice that I think is happening, I can just get my lightsaber out and I can control it. But it also sounds petulant. It sounds like ice cream for dinner and mean people get put in prison. And it sounds very childish, anybody who crosses me. And I think you're so right to point out that control and some of that insistence to take down Obi-Wan is Anakin has this new worldview that he has constructed, and Obi-Wan's going to keep throwing it back in his face that it's BS, and he needs that to stop. He can't hear it anymore. He needs to stop. He needs that to stop. It is really great. And I think what you're saying with Sidious sensing that he's in trouble, I think that it goes a lot into like how the fight is going and this sort of double-edged sword with the dark side. And I think is a great analogy for real life anger is the first fiery moments when you're angry. It, at least for me, it does give me focus. It does make me go, no, I know what I'm going to do. I have the strength to do it and I'm going forward. But the longer you stay in just anger, it's one thing if you have a burst of anger and it gives you purpose and you're recentered again, great. It got you moving. But when you just stay in a place of fury, you become unbalanced, right? And you mistake it for being in control, but you're really just, bumbling and smashing and not looking, not thinking. And I love that in Star Wars, sometimes we see the Darksiders using the focus of anger. And sometimes they're just like a bull in a china shop, that they own. And we see that with Kylo in the forest on Starkiller Base, and I think that's maybe what Sidious is sensing of just like Anakin he's not at the top of his game because he's just yelling and charging forward. It's a tantrum.
Anger could be a great starting point. I can get behind that at some point in life. Great motivation, but I think if you stick in it, you end up hurting so much of what you love or what you're fighting for or those around you in a general sense. And I think that's on display. And I think it's really interesting for Palpatine to be like, he's far away going, too angry.
Lost any sense of balance within his anger. Well, let's launch into Obi-Wan, and it's definitely fascinating to watch this fight, particularly the end with the additional clarity of the Obi-Wan television show. I think for me, Obi-Wan's main perspective, his victory condition, why he's fighting is conflicted. I think he's really conflicted. I think it's so powerful that he tells Yoda early on that he doesn't want to do this. He can't do this. But he's the Jedi who doesn't break. He does what he must. And I think he comes there full of conflict, so sad and broken down when he sits and hides in Padme's shuttle and closes the door with the Force.
Yeah.
And then he sees with his own eyes how twisted Anakin has let himself become. And I think he gets this resolve of, literally what he says, I will do what I must. But then he spends almost the entire fight being quite defensive. And a lot of it is just Obi-Wan's style. And maybe it's a great tactic to just let Anakin, thrash until he's tired.
Yeah.
But there's real conflict in it. There's real conflict with, I will do what I must. I'm taking the robe off. I'm getting the blade ready. You have become a Sith, and it is my responsibility to cut you down. Versus, to me, like the truth of a ton of the fight is, and I don't want to. So how am I going to see this through? I think he knows he has to stop Vader, but he does not want to kill Anakin.
Yeah. I always look at this idea of he goes there. It's like, can he save Anakin or destroy Vader? And is either of those things really possible in him? And we can focus on the end. Some of the best prequel stuff, right? Even quote back in the day, we all loved him yelling, "You were the chosen one." There's a reason that they played that before the episode 1 of the Obi-Wan series. Kenobi is torn apart then, and he was probably torn apart going into this fight, like you said, with the "I can't do it" moment. He watches him burn. He leaves him to die. We now have this knowledge that he fails in both tasks, but Kenobi walks away with this pain, knowing at him that he killed his friend, right? Killed his brother. That's confirmed now. We have the additional information. But I even kind of kick this back to here. There are several moments in this fight in which Kenobi goes for a killing blow on the conference table. He's trying to win. At one point, this is me watching this morning a little more closer. At one point, he's just watching what he thinks is Anakin going over the edge of a lava waterfall. So, as conflicted as he is, that is the conflict. It's like, I kind of want to save him. I can't save him off that waterfall. He jumped off. He saved himself. And I just kind of love that about this fight. He's prepared to destroy him, but when Anakin won't stop, I think the sadness of the reality really starts to hit him, that Anakin has lost and he failed him. And that kind of leads to the high ground moment for me.
Yeah. I mean, I watched it again this morning twice, which was just glorious to have the time to do that this morning. And really interesting to see it again with the Obi-Wan TV show context. I really think I was thinking about that too. And I really feel like both those moments he knows Anakin well enough to know, like, I'm just pushing him. I'm just pushing him to see where this goes. I don't think Obi-Wan has a thought in his head that killing blow on the meeting table is going to land. I mean, it is absolutely killing blow. He is arcing for his head to cut the top half of his body in half. They split him, between the eyes. It's a violent hack, but I just don't think that he thinks that Anakin isn't going to block it,
Yeah, no, I agree with that take on it there too. It's just, it's part of the fight. He's cut up in the moment. And then when given the chance, that's why he resists it. And in the end of this fight, he is not the lecturing older brother he is at the beginning, right? It's a different vibe, different energy. And I think that's the journey of the fight for him.
And I have a lot of thoughts about the way the fight actually moves, and we can talk about that and what's going on with that. But I also was really enjoying that other moment you're talking about, where I've always enjoyed the moment where Obi-Wan is like, yeah, I can see this isn't good. I will get off this.
Yeah,
this piece of machinery that is going over a lava fall, and of course Anakin is late to that party. But the way he lands. There's no, like, his shoulders don't slump. There's not a shot where he's looking expectantly haunted, wondering whether or not he reignites his lightsaber, and he's just waiting. He's like,
yeah.
I know he's rash and stupid and wasn't paying any attention to the fact that we were going over a lava fall, but I know he's not done. Obi-Wan is so ready,
Yeah. I agree with that. No, absolutely. And I love that idea of, like, Obi-Wan looks around and goes, we got to get off this trade. And Anakin's still riding the caboose.
Always on the move, but not paying any attention. Yeah. And I feel like it's meaningful. I know that we now know that Obi-Wan feels he killed him, that is what he believes happened. But even with the high ground, even knowing, like, okay, I've manipulated him into a spot where there's no amount of power. I have the angle, and I know him, and he's not going to get past me. He could have gone for the head, right? He could have, cut him in half.
Yeah, right.
The fact that even then he goes for limbs, and when he says don't try it, that's like such a fascinating part of the fight for Obi-Wan. And we've had questions about this from listeners in the past, great questions about, Obi-Wan, I think he means it. He truly doesn't want Anakin to try it. I think he wants him to come to his senses, turn himself in, anything but just launch himself into being, cut down by Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
And we've gotten great questions in the past of like, if Anakin would have been like, okay, and then like run the other way, would Obi-Wan have chased him? I think probably, right. I think Obi-Wan would have, because I think Obi-Wan was committed to like, he's got to be stopped. I don't want to do this, but he's got to be stopped.
What a fun comedy moment too. But yeah, no,
you underestimate my power, and then he does a backflip halfway across the river and runs away.
Leaps on all the droids, boing, 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 boing. It's kind of like in a Lego when the villain starts launching away to the next cliff you got to get to. In a Lego game, yeah, no, I'm with you on that too. The hesitation is real, and I think conflict all the way through, including him letting them, burn to death. It's not clean. It is a little mean and cruel, and there's always those overused jokes of just stab him or kill him, and well this is what you did to your brother. I think that's the conflict you're supposed to feel, and it's pretty effective for me even now.
Absolutely, that end is extremely effective with that. So how do you feel the environment helps tell the story and the thrill factor? This is once again not a subtle environment.
It is not. Look, I think overall, Empire Strikes Back, Vader Skywalker is the best overall use of environment and setting, as we discussed in the previous episode. Check that out. This is, as you said, less subtle. It's louder. It's a rock concert of a setting. But it's truly the most epic setting yet. I really do believe that. I think the Obi-Wan Kenobi rematch duel from the show reaches some of that. And there's a lot of love about that vibe. I think the Death Star Ruins duel in Rise of Skywalker with Kylo and Rey is one of my favorite just looks. And the Exegol duel is epic. It is the Heart of Darkness. It's all those things. But this one, I still think Mustafar stands atop the rest. I really do. Again, overall, I think Empire, the shots, the looks, it's so beautiful and what it means. We dug deep. But this one is, like I said, turning up to 11. It's what you wanted, and it's what you needed for these two characters at this point in the story.
Yeah, I think it is absolutely one of the best, because it is just the this goes to 11. The element of Star Wars that is a thrilling adventure serial, pulpy action movie, right? There's a reason that's always was always tantalizing when you read it in a novelization or on the back of an action figure or trading card, that they had an epic duel on a lava planet. It's kind of the most just, they're different planets. Wizards can fight with laser swords. Where would be the most epic place to fight? All over volcanoes. So just from that perspective, it, goes to 11.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then for this story of how this individual Anakin fell to the dark side, how the entire galaxy fell to the dark side, how the people of the Republic gave up their own republic because they were manipulated into fearing some alleged other, in the Separatists, that's really just turning, everybody in on themselves. All that stuff is really, really just brought to the literal, no pun intended, boiling point. By setting this battle on what many cultures, symbolize as straight up hell, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to, paint with a broad brush. Obviously, there are many different interpretations of ideas of, the planes of existence. But just really even ignoring actual religion, the experience in my lifetime of growing up in secular Western culture, even if some of the imagery has religious origins, that planet is hell, right? I mean, just from a cultural perspective, and I'll only speak for the ages I grew up in, that's hell, right?
Yep. Yep, absolutely. If Revenge of the Sith came out in 85, there'd be some satanic panic over it, since that's in the hear that phrase in the news again. Thank you, Stranger Things season 4. Yes, 100%. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that's a big part of it. I also feel like it just kind of works for me that they're kind of just fighting on Anakin's soul, right? It's this this fiery power that could be productive and natural. We're seeing all these, Mustafarians and these droids going around and mining it and working with the environment, and great classic Star Wars thing of every culture is sort of at least partially defined by where they actually live and their relationship to nature. So you can kind of see like, oh, well, maybe what's going on here is just productive and natural and organic, like Anakin's fiery soul could be. Or it could be just a dangerous, devastating, horrific wildfire of anger.
Yeah, and all it takes is a misplaced lightsaber strike to press the wrong buttons, and the anger explodes. Absolutely.
Exactly. And that's one of the other things that I think works really well in the environment to tell the story, to tell the thrill factor. It is just the, like, this is an epic fight, so it travels. It goes from place to place, the way the Bespin duel did, the way some of the great early swashbuckling films, fought all over the castle from this parapet down to this dungeon, right? It's got that vibe. But so much is told in the story of how Anakin and Obi-Wan travel through the environment, right? Anakin is almost always on the offensive. He is charging forward. He is paying no attention to anything. Like you said, he smashes those controls.
Yep.
But he's, for the most part, like Obi-Wan every once in a while finds himself in an awkward position. But for the most part, Anakin's the one who's charging forward, leading them to more and more dangerous and precarious places.
Yep.
And I remember when the film came out, one of the criticisms was, there was no soul. It was just big CGI action pieces. They just got to jump on a big thing so it can fall, blah, blah, blah. But to me, like, it's a visual metaphor for what's happening to Anakin. He is not thinking about anything but his anger, his need to control. The only thing he can see is Obi-Wan, and he is barely paying attention to the fact that he is pushing them into more and more precarious places that are just going to destroy them both.
Yeah.
And in contrast, Obi-Wan spends the entire battle, down to shots you can pick out, constantly scanning the environment for his own safety and for opportunities. He is so much more centered, so much more aware of the totality of his environment. And like, I feel like Anakin vision, would just be, are we fighting in a field of lilies? I don't know. All I can see is Obi-Wan, Yeah.
No, absolutely. I love the moment where, the lava starts kind of exploding and the rocks, everything's coming down on them, and they're both kind of like hiding. It's kind of like Kenobi's like, of course this would happen. You got to go here and I'll meet you where you need to go. But yeah, I think you're right. It's and in the end, he's the one who uses the environment to his advantage.
Yep. And I think that he's spending that whole fight looking for a place in a way to bring it, to turn it around and bring it back to Anakin's choice, right?
Yeah.
Because Obi-Wan is the one who declares, I will do what I must. And then he lets Anakin drive the fight, right? In theory, you could look at it as Obi-Wan has come there to stop Anakin. So in theory, he's the aggressor, right?
Yeah.
And he claims he's the aggressor by saying, I will do what I must. And then he lets Anakin lead the fight. From the very first phrase, Anakin flips back and takes command, and he drives Obi-Wan back. And Obi-Wan, for the most part, just lets Anakin drive him to more and more desperate, weird places until he spots the place where he can reassert control and force Anakin into a choice.
I agree. Even looking inside what we keep kind of referring to as the conference room table sequence, and everything. But like, Anakin's leaping off of him. His blade is the wild shot that launches the bigger problems on Mustafar. Yeah, I agree with that take on it there. And this is why I love looking at it. Why I look at what is each frame telling you. And that's easy to get lost, especially if you're coming out of a theater, or especially if you're making a joke on Twitter. I get it. You want to make a high ground joke? Good for you. But trying to analyze what it all means and what it all builds to, I think it's all through this fight.
Yeah, absolutely. So speaking of looking at every frame, what sort of realities of filmmaking and the process do you think about when you watch this fight?
I think at times for me, you feel the blue screen. You talked about the big overall critique was a little more lifeless and everything. And Well, I don't necessarily fully agree with that as much these days. I understand it, which is why I'd always put the Return of the Jedi fight as my favorite, right? Because I connect to those emotions a lot, even though there's bigger things going on. Even some of them I didn't fully understand as a 7 or 8 year old. I got the emotions there. And the general critique of the prequels was a little more dancing, right? We talked about that a lot with the Phantom Menace one there. So that kind of criticism doesn't hold up for me over the course of time. But in this fight, you do feel some of the blue screen. You do kind of get it, leaping onto, and this is for me, very personal, leaping onto really, really thin walkways. And I just don't have balance. So maybe I can't comprehend that. Lava splashing everywhere where I'm like, there's got to be burn more sleeves off. The riding the tiny droids, the digital pickup shots of the two of them, which I don't think I came out of the theater going, did you see those digital pickup shots? I just saw featurettes that were like, oh, wow, some of the long shots in that conference room were completely digital. It wasn't them because they needed this a different shot for editing and pacing. But at the end of the day, it's two characters, two actors. I know you like you said, they do most of the stuff, but I'm sure there's some doubles in there as well.
Yeah.
And it's them, some doubles, some talented doubles, and a very talented fight coordinator, just leaving it all on the table. So any of those realities that hold me back, blue screen tech, the way George was putting things out there, even the dialogue and the delivery of it that sometimes can rub up against me. The other reality is this: it's very human. It's very two performers knowing the character. It's a stunt coordinator knowing how to tell the fight that George wants to tell and tell the story in this fight. So therefore, I really love that. And I was focused on some of the quicker moments in this fight this morning. You talked about the quicker stuff, right? And yeah, you're right. You know, you almost want to frame by frame it. The moves, Anakin man is back, everything. It just I don't know, just brought all that home for me. And just what is at the core of this fight. It is two characters and two actors.
Yeah, no, I think for me, when I watch the film, I'm not bothered. I don't see the blue screen, green screen. I don't see the pickup shots. I think it's, probably my love of these characters, of Obi-Wan, my relationship with this film, with this fight. I feel of like all of the prequels where there are moments where like, I get it that line is maybe a little flat, or that delivery is a little flat and not as human as maybe some people want. I feel like this is so raw. I think this is some of both of them's best acting, but particularly Hayden. Some of those shots where he just looks so hollowed out, so haunted, so determined in just, I'm going to do this, whether it's good, bad, or otherwise. It's just this, I'm just doing it. And so I think I acknowledge that those flaws are there, and I can literally physically see them and acknowledge them, but I don't ever feel them when I'm personally watching it or get distracted by them. So what I think about this as a culmination, right? Of we're doing the prequels, we're telling this story. This is the beat that has to happen. Lucas has made this decision that the lightsaber fights are going to look different because these are people at their absolute height. Now they've been fighting the Clone Wars for 3 years in endless combat. They eat, sleep, and breathe lightsaber combat, and these two know each other, absolutely like the back of their own hand. And it just feels like such a culmination of all these things that everybody's doing this sort of like, we're pointing where we're going to hit the home run to. That's the goal of this fight. So when I watch this, I think about Nick Gillard, that this is just sort of a culmination of his choreography, right? All the stunt work and training that Ewan and Hayden did. I think about all the great design, all the great animatics that went into this. There's some great weird, fun sound effects throughout. There's that weird boing.
That's exactly what I went to.
Space boing that they make on the beam. That so many people were so aware of. Like, we've all heard about this for a long time, and here we are. It's gotta be epic, and I think I kind of feel that. I think as a kid, I played lightsaber fights, and then I also, when I was bored with my brother, played the floors made of lava in our bedroom. And to see the floors made of lava and a lightsaber fight combined, it is just sort of this culmination of epic fantasy but also just the epic emotions, obviously.
Yeah.
And I've really tried to put aside my preconceived notions. There are definitely times where I've thought about like, oh, I wish Anakin had a red blade so they were a little differentiated. Or is there a way to have less motion blur or glow when the lightsabers hit so we can see it, a little bit? Or even, hey, if they really trained to fight that fast, should they have slowed the film down a little bit?
Yeah.
In terms of, usually it's the opposite. I have definitely had all of those thoughts, but now I really just like embracing it for what it is, because that speed is the intent. That utter knowledge of one another is the intent. This is the ultimate expression of George Lucas saying faster, more intense.
Yeah, it truly is. And it's weird. And we had this discussion in the episode about Kenobi, Vader, and A New Hope, right? And the realities of that, and it's slower. It's so weird to kind of remember. I don't know if you felt this too. There was this thing where coming out of the theater roughly in that era, I'm not saying specifically to the first couple times I saw it, there was discussions happening for me at a Chili's bar up on Reseda in Northridge area. How are these the same two characters as the ones in A New Hope, right? Where you were using both fights to criticize the other fight in this weird kind of lockbox of emotion. Just this like, well, I didn't like this one because the one I grew up with was slower. Well, and it's also weird that one's slower and this one's fast, and this one looks better. But that way, it was this weird kind of like it's just weird thing, man. Which is why. I don't mean to pick on the people that made that reimagined New Hope fight, but I'm just like, you stopped having the conversation in 2006 about those two fights and just decided to match one to the other when they're totally two different things. And so I think I've emerged from that haze a little bit where, yes, it does have, I keep thinking, one of the big over top moments in this revenge fight is the both doing the spinning, right? They're doing, and they come to that like, boom, they're on top of the table, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's
they're the side of the table when they do the force push.
Yeah. And they're doing and they're both spinning their lightsaber around. And it's making a great sound. That is over the top. It's really over the top, and it's a great spot. It's a great spot in the fight, and I love that it's there. But I think I think that could have rubbed up against a few people back in the day when you're coming out of it and going, well, that was silly. What was that for? And I think because you got a lot of preconceived notions for the fights, which is weird because this is a couple years after Phantom Menace. We're all used to this kind of thing by now. Again, I think I'm speaking mostly our generation in general.
Yeah.
If you're 7 coming out of Revenge of the Sith, you are running to the playground.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, and probably if you were 7 in Phantom Menace, you're like, yes, this is exactly what I expected, a massive escalation of the fights in Phantom Menace. And I think for me, like the intensity and the ferocity, it does tell the story because Anakin is in the throes of the dark side. And while Obi-Wan is the hero, this is after years and years and years of war. Being a Jedi, he wants to be able to have this prowess, but this is the last thing he wants to be doing. And to me, it helps tell the story of like, this is where we ended up, that this level of just vicious combat in a horrific environment, that this comes second nature to me.
Yeah.
It's the last place that he wants to be as a person. And it's not even, as we've talked about, it's not even remotely where he's at in A New Hope, right? He's so centered and just like, hey, lightsaber's the thing I gotta do. And I'm only doing it for this short time for this very specific reasons. I think is really powerful. I love your story. That's such a great life lesson, right? Of with your bar conversation of, I am a Star Wars fan, and we are talking about 2 lightsaber fights. And here's why I don't like both of them. Then let's start to consider the word fan. Not like we can't dislike things or have favorites, but that kind of thing where you're leading from such a critical place where you're a fan, which is liking thing, but the only thing you focus on is disliking it. And ending up in that place that nobody wants to be. They want joy out of things, right? Again, not saying don't criticize. We're saying things we don't like, but just, don't end up in a bar disliking everything about something you like.
But again, using both fights against each other, which would make you think you'd like the other fight better. But no, you don't. And you're just throwing both of the fights at each other. And it's And it's weird because we all knew the New Hope one was slower because we liked Empire and Jedi better. That's the one we reenacted on the playground. So then you're holding on to that. You're not engaging with the story there, but then you start. Anyways, you know what it goes. It was a long dinner at Chili's that night.
I understand. It's just kind of it's the comedy of it for me. It's understandable. We love something. We get extremely strong opinions about it, and then when suddenly we find yourself like, I love Star Wars, but it shouldn't have lightsabers, or ships, or politics, or planets, or characters, or puppets. Like, okay, stories shouldn't be in Star Wars,
or arcs, or growth, or
that's when it maybe slips into.
Yeah,
you're on Mustafar fighting yourself. All right, let's get into some moments of thrill and emotion because there are a lot to discuss. You already mentioned a couple of great ones. What's on your list? What are your first couple?
The entire preamble. You mentioned that you have done that yourself, but even the conversation with Padme, there's a lot of great stuff in there. There's a lot of great stuff in that preamble. It really sets up the fight. Really works for me now on a lot of levels. And again, do I think everything in Padme's story was handled perfectly? I do not. But I love the exchange. You really get an insight. You really see the lies that he's trying to sell, and so that's a great way to start it. All leading up to something we've already talked about. But I will do what I must. You will try. Then he leaps into the fight, and the music starts. Whoa, that's a great beginning to this fight.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree, and that whole scene is worthy of great discussion of everything between Anakin and Padme, and how Obi-Wan fits into it all. Amazing to see the changes of time, where that Anakin's line of "If you're not with me, then you are my enemy," how resoundingly clear to everyone in the theater that was Anakin Skywalker quoting the President of the United States at the time. Resoundingly clear. Probably not on people's minds as much when they're seeing it for the first time. Years later, a lot of fascinating stuff in that. But yeah, Obi-Wan coming to that conclusion that I will do what I must is in the pull of the lightsaber is so great. In the you will try. I mean, people talk a lot about liking Anakin Vader's sense of humor, even in his dark moments. That is a pretty nasty little zinger of you will try.
You will try.
You'll put your back into it, but good luck, old man. It's pretty great. It's a great way to start the fight. Love that. So what are some other moments for you? I
do right when we get going, it's so funny because just playing this in like the Lego Skywalker Saga game, this part of the map is so in my brain because the game glitched and I was stuck in it for like a day and I couldn't figure out. Oh, my game had glitched. I got to restart. That fight down the small hallway in the beginning, that little entryway, and kind of and just the compact nature of them fighting, but also the movement of them going to the bigger part of the fight. And you're so right. This is that old swashbuckling feel of different locations, and how you get there is important. But I love that little sequence. It's just something really fun. And because it has a little bit of echo of Empire for me, a little bit. And I kind of like that.
Yeah, no, I really like that early phrase down the hallway. It's some of the moments where you can kind of see the different style of lightsaber fighting really clearly. I love the just sparks flying off the hallway, and you really get that sense of just like, oh, everything is, nothing is, no one is being careful about anything. Sparks flying off that hallway. But there's that specific phrase. One of the things that I've really come to appreciate is it's in other parts of the fights in Revenge of the Sith, particularly Anakin and Dooku toward the end. But these moments where it really is just about sort of momentum and sort of swooping one another's blades, right? There's moments that it is about crashing together. There's a couple of great moments where, Obi-Wan's just kind of adjusting his blade and letting Anakin hammer away at him so he can get these opportunities to do these sort of, I'm going to use your momentum and we're going to kind of like swoop. The twisting of the blades phrases are so great in there. You referenced it earlier. There's that great one where they're both kind of trying to twist each other's blades, and Obi-Wan twists Anakin around backward and does a cut at his back, and Anakin blocks behind his back. So I will always love a block behind the back, but that whole thing is so fluid. It is so a battle of two people who know one another's pressure points, who knows what one another is going to try. And here, let me throw out the most clever, surprising move. And that block, that block.
Oh yeah, they're so familiar, right? They've been fighting alongside each other. All that kind of tracks and makes sense. Really does.
Yeah. So what's next for you in your list of thrills and emotion?
Yeah, I go to Anakin choking Kenobi and how unsettling it is. And you talk about Hayden, one and the same. Hayden having great acting moments. I really love that one, even though like I said, it's really unsettling. It's disturbing. It's dare I say, serial killer. Like he's just choking his buddy as the life drains out of him, and just look on his face. Talk about the moments of Anakin versus Vader. This is one of those moments where I think Vader's definitely winning. And it really is effective. It's in terms of pro wrestling, it's a rest spot where they're resting and gathering their energy for the rest of the match. But for here, it's just really effective storytelling of where Anakin is at this point in the fight.
Yeah, that's a really, really great pick. Yeah, it is disturbing. I do have to ask you about this. I don't remember the details, and I didn't have time to look them up. But back in the day when they were doing, showing you bits and pieces of the process on the website. I don't remember if it was an animatic, if it was behind the scenes. There was a phrase of the fight, and I was just drooling to see it. And there was a phrase that was, I think, Obi-Wan knocking Anakin's saber away. And then it isn't in the film. And I remember being like, hey, they cut out the logic of where and how Anakin lost his blade. And watching it now as an adult, you're like, yeah, you can assume Obi-Wan knocked his blade out of his hand. Yeah. And we're picking up mid-fight because they didn't stop and rest their heads while we watched Yoda and Sidious. They kept fighting. And it doesn't bother me now, but it bothered me back in the day. Did it ever bother you? Did you ever go like, what? Hey, I missed part of the fight. Where did Anakin's lightsaber go? No, it didn't. But also you're talking to someone who about an hour after seeing Rogue One for the first time went, hey, where's that shot of Jin and the TIE fighter? I didn't see it. Did you see it? I didn't see it. So no, I do remember that featurette. I do remember a lot of that stuff. And I think that's where the digital pickup shot, so to speak, is where I picked that stuff up. No. I think I'm just so focused on how scary he is choking him. Yeah, no, it is very scary. Right around that section, I do like the mutual hitting each other a lot. But in particular, Obi-Wan's very powerful kick of the clothesline with a leg that causes Anakin to do a full flip, right? Oh, it's great. And that kind of leads to that moment I was talking about with him going to slice him in two on that table. And Anakin blocks it. Yeah, I love that sequence. Yeah, absolutely great stuff. You talked about this, but I want to tackle it as one of my favorite moments. The massive lightsaber spin leading to the mutual force push. I get how you gif it and put this is useless. I get it. But like that to me, that's taking it out of context. It's if you watch this lightsaber fight and think the point is absolute realism. This is how you would do it if you were fencing in real life. To me, that's not what's happening here. It is about them trying to surprise one another, right? It is about them looking to have any advantage. And I think it is a great phrase in the fight to just show like, okay, they're kind of evenly matched. How are they going to get out of this, right? The spin is just cool. Like if you don't like cool things that are not entirely logical, Star Wars is often going to present challenges for you, starting with ships making noise in space. Right. And for me, this is one of those moments where the cool in the fantasy has emotional logic. It might not have super great, tight, real world logic, but it has emotional logic. It builds in that great big clash. And the mutual force push to me is the best moment in the fight of like, they know each other so well, and they are kind of evenly matched on power, despite what Anakin claims, And I say that as somebody who did a sketch about it, like a month after it came out, where my brother and I, had the fight and dropped, put our hands up against one another, then dropped our lightsabers and put our other hands up against one another, and then put a leg up. And, it's funny. You absolutely can find the humor in it. But to me, the story it's telling and the space fantasy thrill it's trying to convey, it knocks it out of the park. Yeah, the space fantasy thrill is very important to this fight, obviously. And I love about that sequence now more than ever. And maybe this is still not one of my favorite moments of the fight, and maybe it wasn't back then, but I do enjoy it. It's the sound design really shining in that moment. The blades, everything about it's fine. And and I'm fine with things. I don't approach I do like some realism in these fights.
I always talk about, one of my favorite Game of Thrones fight is Brienne versus the Hound, because it's just so real. I love the moments in Empire Strikes Back where Luke is swinging and missing. It's just so real. I spent 17 years breaking up and getting involved in fights. All real fights that don't involve MMA fighters last about 10 seconds with everyone on the floor gasping. Like, it's not what you think it is. And so I don't necessarily want that in this fight at the end of Revenge of the Sith. I want some thrills, and I think it is a thrilling moment. And yes, it can be fun, but again, the sound, I love it just for that sound.
You bring up a very good point about where was Mustafar Mall security?
They should have been Russian. Well, actually, there's one of my favorite moments is when the little bucket droid floats up to them, and they're fighting. The droid's just like, "What the hell's going on?" Okay, I'm getting out of here.
Yeah, I believe it's the lava mining droid.
Yeah.
I love that moment. Mm-hmm. It was posted by great comedian Paul F. Tompkins, poking fun at it because relatively recently, in the last 6 months or whatever, having a sense of humor about it, and that's all fine and great. Let's have a sense of humor about it. But to me, it's so George Lucas. It is. I want to do world building. I'm not just going to have it be a lava planet because it looks tormented and hellish. There are people who live here, and it's a mining facility, and those would have droids. It's all that world building, and we're trying to do our day job at the plant.
Yeah.
And these space wizards are having an epic battle, smashing everything. And there's also, I feel like, this great push that Lucas has, where I think he has this great commitment, where he feels like the dark parts of stories have to be dark. But he's so tortured by it. There's a documentary that came out in the 2008 release of the Indiana Jones movies, and it's an interview all about Temple of Doom and about how Lucas insisted it's the second movie, even though it's a prequel, it's got to be the dark chapter. And he talks about all the reasons that it should be dark, and at the end says, "It's not my favorite though. I don't like the dark ones. I like the fun ones." And it's just like he's committed. Revenge of the Sith is a dark movie. You said it yourself. Anakin looks like a serial killer. It's dark. And he's like, he can't resist trying to put a little bit of whimsy and light into it. And that's that little droid going like, just trying to do my job. And this bleep's happening. I'm out of here.
I'm out of here. And even the Mustafarians kind of like, look at who are those folks? Why are they fighting? Why
do we for writing?
Yeah, why do we just lose an entire piece of our facility here?
Is that one of the anchors that just went flowing over the lava fall? Yeah,
love it.
Yeah. So, what are any more moments of thriller emotion for you?
A couple left for me. The promo shot I call the VHS box shot of the lava exploding, blades clashing. A little bit of a wide shot, a little bit of a long shot. It's beautiful, man. It's why it's shown up in so much Star Wars marketing material and T-shirts and hats and screensavers and all that stuff. It's a great shot and love that. And Star Wars always has those moments, and that's one of them.
Yeah, the holding each other's hands, trying to control the blades, the lava splashing up in the background. Absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
The one of my favorite parts of it is the last phrase of the fighting in the lava river. It does not bother me that Anakin is on a little lava mining droid. I love the close quarters. I love the shot of Obi-Wan recentering, where he kind of brings the blade up in size and blows the air out. In their conversation here, that last volley of close quarters fighting, and that look from Obi-Wan of like, there's the opportunity I've been looking for. Final beat for me. I have the high ground. It just works for me.
Yeah. No, I think when I talked earlier, like some of the blue screen stuff, that's kind of some of the stuff. I just mean that in a general sense, whether or not even was blue screen all the time or not. I don't even care. It is the leaping and then landing. Like even today, I was like, wow, he really measured that leap good, force or not. He knew how to land on that little pad because he didn't have a lot of momentum. I would have had to swing that rope for about an hour before I got there. And of course, Anakin takes a big leap and lands on this tiny, tiny little droid. You could try to apply some logic to it. It's the Force, kids. That's what it is. So I don't think I get held up on it as much, but also just like it. It's also really weird. It's sci-fi mixed in with the Star Wars fantasy we love. So I like that. I didn't even know. I don't think I even, if I remember correctly, I don't think I loved the swing and blade strike that was from the trailer.
I think
I like it now. I think it is, again, it's a bit over the top. This entire film is over the top. It is the third dark chapter in this prequel series. And we got unlimited power, cackling Palpatine throwing Senate pods. And we got these two, like, where else can we take this fight? Swinging on metal ropes. And we slash at each other. And I think it's all part of the aesthetic. And I love it. I'll definitely love it now, even if I didn't love a lot of that then.
It's dark swashbuckling. You kind of can't get more swashbuckling than swinging and hitting swords, you know?
You just need a sail on a pirate ship behind them and you're there.
Yeah, they could have turned that machinery into a boat.
Yeah.
Had a good time on the lava river.
Mm-hmm.
So last thing I wanted to ask you about in this fight is we do know now that Obi-Wan has spent a decade believing that indeed was the end of his friend, his brother, Anakin Skywalker. Do you feel like Obi-Wan should have made sure Anakin was dead? How do you feel about that end watching it now with the information we have?
Yeah, look, sure. Yes, he should have. That whole high ground sequence is about, like you said, it's a truth that Anakin can't see through the lies he keeps telling himself, right? That's what's going on. It's all painful and it's all sad. And technically, he should have done what Palpatine did, which was put 2 fingers on the pulse to see if he's okay. But and again, it's one of those things where I get the jokes. It's been a punchline scene for a long time. I just think it just kind of misses the emotional weight of the moment and what we're talking about, this theme of conflict in Kenobi. So story-wise, I actually really get it. I can have some fun and say, yeah, I still don't think he would have, could have, should have, whatever, have put a blade through his head, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yes, if he had done that, just like at the end of the Kenobi series, we got that it was like the past is present and we're living it all again. Time is a circle of having the same discussion, but missing the point or missing just what's going on with Obi-Wan's character, what's going on in his heart. And I like approaching the story from that versus a very technical, he should have put a blade through his heart, his burning, singed heart, and walked away. I couldn't have done that.
Yeah, I think there's a temptation sometimes to look at what a character's motivation is in a story and not have, to me, stop yourself from really, really, really having empathy, really, really putting yourself in their shoes, right? So if you approach it as Obi-Wan had a mission, it's to stop Anakin. Great. But I feel like I always feel the torture in Obi-Wan. He didn't want to do this. He saw how far gone Anakin was, and he convinced himself that he will do what he must. And he gets this opportunity. He has the high ground. He tries to tell Anakin not to do it. He makes this horrible strike against a child he raised and failed. And I don't think he can bring himself to do the final chop. Right. I don't think he can. I don't think he can walk up to him and cut his head off. I think that watching it now in this context in particular, he's probably not gonna live anyway, right? But then the fire, right, and to see that happening to someone you cared about, and the way he looks away in disgust, I just feel like there is a little bit of Obi-Wan lets himself go. Yeah, he tells himself, it's over. I'm not going to stand here and watch this. Yeah. It's over. Because I think he couldn't bring himself to do it, Yeah. And I really love the new context now of he walks away from this limbless, tragic creature who's brought this hell onto himself, burning alive, and assumes, like, of course he died. Of course he's gone. And spends a decade. He couldn't even bring himself to make the final chop, and he spent a decade still haunted by it. Yeah. And I think that is the storytelling of the new show of Obi-Wan's memory of that entire battle is not, it was a close one, but I pulled out a victory, and it was too bad, but had to stop Vader. It's absolute trauma. It's like we were talking about with Yoda, of like, I got tricked into the Clone Wars. I got tricked into being a warrior. And look where that led me. This horrific hellscape battle with someone I love, and taking his life, taking his limbs, taking his life. That was trauma. That was hell. There's no victory in any of that to me. And then he goes through this whole journey where he has to face it. He has to reckon with it. He's almost brought back to that same moment and just says, I know the trauma I went through for 10 years because I let myself be a warrior, a violent warrior. And I'm not doing that again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, that to me is the story. There's plenty to debate about whether Kenobi has responsibility to stop Vader to protect the rest of the galaxy and whether he missed his shot twice. That's, I think, an interesting and valid discussion. But I think from the perspective of Obi-Wan, I chose as much violence as I possibly could on Mustafar. And I almost did again on this other planet, the rocky, stabby, fighty place. And I chose to honor what I think it means to be a Jedi. I chose to honor all the people who fell from all this violence by showing mercy and not engaging in endless conflict.
Yeah, breaking the cycles is something we talk about a lot here. It works, and part of the discussions and part of, well, he should have. I hate to use the word fun around this dark stuff, but it's part of the fun of just kind of discussing every little corner of the story, and why we always go back to, all right, we'll find out the why of that scene. What is it telling you by showing you this, and that's part of the fun of the discussion. But I don't mind having a little bar discussion at that. We'll go back to that Chili's. We can drive that Chili's now, just. And,
I'm very hungry. I'd like to go to Chili's.
We can order a plate of their quesadillas and talk about, he should have, of course, because of this, because of that, and he didn't. And what does that mean for the character? What does that mean for the story? I think it's a fun spot to engage with.
Absolutely. So wrapping up our big conversation here, out of 10 lightsabers fully ignited, how many lightsabers do you personally give this epic conflict?
Yeah, no fraction of a point here. I'm going straight 9 out of 10 for me. Nearly perfect, especially over time, especially with added context, but even just looking at the fight as it is on the screen. Absolutely love it. 9 out of 10.
I am going to finally wise up and use your decimal point. I'm going to go 9.5 out of 10.
Beautiful.
This fight is so central to the entire Skywalker saga. It is so blazing hot and blazing fast. That's what is intended, and that's what comes across. It is, thrill and emotion turned to the absolute extremes. And while there are other lightsaber fights that I think are just as good or I like in different ways, I think this one knocks it out of the park for what it's trying to be. It is trying to be the biggest lightsaber fight ever made, Yeah.
Yeah. Especially here. We didn't think we'd have more.
Nope. We thought that was it. Lucky for us, we have more to discuss. Do you have any final thoughts on these fights for now?
Look, I used to say back when I was struggling with the prequels a little bit, I'll tell you what, the last 40 minutes of Revenge of the Sith really makes me want to watch A New Hope. And I would do that often until I started saying that publicly. Watching this today, I think I have a Kenobi series rewatch coming up real soon. I love the feel, love the connection to all the rest of the storytelling.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really fun to have all of these different moments become fresh again with different context, and we'll only have more context to come. I think for me, what is striking about these two duels are they are such a climax, not just of the prequels, but of the journey that Lucas was going on with these 6 films and everybody who worked with him. There's such a climax, which creates this really fascinating perspective for the sequels of, well, where do we go from here? And I'm looking forward to discussing that. With that, Ken, do you want to let people know where they can find us?
Yeah, we are ForceCenter Pod. We are on Twitter on ForceCenter Pod. We are on Instagram and YouTube as well. Go over and give us a subscription on YouTube so you can catch things like our live Q&As, supplementary material and rebroadcast of the podcast over there. Facebook page is ForceCenter Podcast. Podcast available on Acast, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, and more. Merch is available at tpublic.com/user/ForceCenter, and you can support us directly at patreon.com/ForceCenter. From there, you can get into our Discord server where you can continue the discussion daily with ForceCenter friends. You can follow me at Napzok or go to my website, napzok.com, where you can link to other things I'm working on, like my music show, Pop Rock and Radio. I make references to music a lot here. It's because I love it. Also, Casterly Talk, my Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon, Rings of Power podcast. We're picking up steam as we got 2 series to cover at the same time. It's going to be a busy weekend, but check it out over there, sir. You?
Yeah, so actually, I just have a clarifying question. So for all of your Lord of the Rings coverage, you're doing that on Casterly Talk, and taking Casterly Talk as a umbrella fantasy show.
Currently, umbrella fantasy show, is a good way to look at it. It's possible that I might be looking at Willow over there too, because I do love the movie and looking forward to the series. But Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon, and those little books that guy writes offer up a lot of content to review. But for the most part, we're a Game of Thrones World of Ice and Fire podcast. But yeah, covering over there, and folks like Alden Diaz and Andres Cabrera and other folks popping in there. This week we had Alex and Molly Damon on, who were just dying to talk about anything not Star Wars. They love Lord of the Rings, so a lot of fun. So that's the spot over there. And sir, if you want to talk about some swords and sandals, we'll get over there too.
Ooh, so many swords happening. I'm very, very excited for all that stuff coming out around the same time.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be a lot. Anyway, if you want to check out what I'm doing now, you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok is at Joseph Scrimshaw, and you can go to my website, josephscrimshaw.com, for other comedy adventures. I will be in Minneapolis soon in August for the Great Convention Convergence, doing a brand new stand-up show and some other fun panels, including a couple Star Wars ones. So if you're interested, info on my whole schedule is on the live shows page of josephscrimshaw.com. But for now, for myself, for Ken, for that lava mining droid, the DLC-13 mining droid. That's right, the downloadable content 13 mining droid. This has been ForceCenter.